Survival is a very simple game mode. Hold out for as long as you can against endless waves of zombies. The longer you last, the harder it gets. It gets to the point where the game literally throws everything at you. Commons, specials, and tanks en masse. Surviving for 4 minutes earns you a bronze medal, 7 a silver, 10 a gold. And then you just go for a high score. By legit means, of course. Good enough, I guess. I don't think that survival is very fun to play, nor is it interesting. It's not a bad game mode, in fact, it's pretty harmless. But man, I just can't really have much fun with this anymore. Which is strange because I loved this game mode as a kid. According to my stats, I've played over 1,000 survival matches, and I can guarantee you that was all years ago. I don't know how accurate these stats are, but they're all I have. So that's why I'm making this video, to find out why survival isn't as fun as it used to be, despite the game mode being untouched. Okay, so on the surface, survival sounds like a really simple game mode, but of course, this is L4D2 2, where even the simplest things are actually very complicated, like the bot's behavior in survival. If you thought the bots were bad in campaign, I've got some news for you. Without add-ons, the bots are straight up useless, and will die to the first tank if you're not protecting them. And when it's time to heal, they never use their medkits, because they are programmed not to when there is a tank active, which there almost always is. These are the time intervals for a tank to spawn. It doesn't look too bad, right? But tanks usually spawn far away, and if you don't kill them fast enough, the bots will just never heal themselves, which is a big problem for solo players. Also, the bots really seem to struggle with shoving off the jockey. Look, they're shoving him, but the jockey is like glued onto the survivor, or maybe he just has a really tight grip on him. I'm not sure if this is a problem in campaign, but for some reason it was very apparent in survival. Apparently there are 2 tanks that spawn at once during these specific times. I didn't even know that. One thing that I do know for sure, however, are the long stumble times. You know, in versus when a hunter or jockey pounces somebody and it knocks any nearby survivors back for a split second? Well, turn that split second into a second and a half. And if you're near an edge, forget about it. You're most likely going to stumble your way to your death. Even when you're not in harm's way, the stumbling animation completely stops you from doing anything. So when a teammate needs help, you just can't help but watch as your character just stumbles. It's actually kind of frustrating. Why did they even add this to survival? There must have been some reason for it, and all I can think of is they wanted to make the game mode harder. A second and a half doesn't sound like a lot of time, but in the heat of the moment, it really matters. So try not to be near people that get pounced by a hunter or jockey. There are very specific times where no common infected will spawn at all. This is the game giving you a reprieve to heal up and gather supplies from a different part of the map if you need to. So you better make use of that time. And I like this. But sometimes it can be unclear when common infected stop spawning. You'll notice it, but you'll probably notice it too late.
Nice shot!
I think it would have been nice if the game gave you a heads up, but maybe that would be too arcadey and distracting for the people who already know the times. But I don't think a little text box would hurt anyone. Like I said before, survival is not a bad game mode. I think it's just
monotonous.
There are over 30 survival maps and most of them feel the same. There most likely is the one best strategy in every map, so it gets repetitive, but I guess that's to be expected in a game mode like this. And it's not really bad because of that fact. I mean, maybe that's a good thing for some people. It always starts out the same, but the amount of time you survive is dependent on how well you play. Fair enough. But the game mode can still get repetitive in other ways, such as the lack of gameplay variety. There isn't anything to do besides just surviving. I mean, fair enough I guess, but without any objectives or anything to do at all, it just becomes so monotonous. And I think it would have been cool if there was a sense of progression, just like campaign mode. Think of COD Zombies. That game mode is also endless, but there is variety and every map feels different. You know, perks, opening doors, upgrading weapons. There is stuff to do. I'm not saying that survival needs to be exactly like Call of Duty, I'm just making a point. Survival is just so bare bones that monotony is kind of inevitable. No wonder so few people play the game mode in modern day. And finally, survival is tedious. The tedious part of survival is how you prepare and set up. If you truly want to get a good time, you have to use every single item that is on the map, but the problem is that they are all scattered and it'll be difficult to get to them while being attacked by infected. So you prepare by getting the items to the spot that you're going to camp in, but it's awfully inconvenient because you have to spam the use button while running in a specific direction. It's not really a problem with gas cans, but it is a problem with other items such as the defib and grenades. It's so damn tedious, especially when you're by yourself. Why can't the survivors just pick up these items like a normal person? It's not really an issue in the main game because it wasn't necessary, but
It is now.
there should have been something in the game that made it easier to move items from one place to another. If I ever play survival, I almost never bother with setting up because it's just
not worth it.
And going for a high score just isn't appealing to me, especially when there is nothing to do while surviving. And then you have the maps, which the Last Stand update added like 26 of them, but unfortunately they are just forgettable and add almost nothing to the game, besides filling out the rest of the Left 4 Dead 1 survival maps that were not in the game for some reason. Seriously, there are only a handful of survival maps that are good in my opinion, and that's because those maps have multiple strategies and give you a lot of supplies. Every other map is just mid or uninteresting because they all feel the same. The only thing that changes is the map layout and the method of how you start the game mode. And I guess that's okay, but can we really not do anything more?
Is that the best you can do? No?
Most of these maps don't have anything unique in them. The layout doesn't change the longer you survive, nor does it expand at all. There are also no events that happen. The map doesn't reward you for getting a bronze, silver, or gold medal, and there's like no story at all.
28 stab wounds.
Does survival need all of these things?
No!
But I think it really help out and make it more interesting to play. It really does just feel like the bare minimum of content. And to be fair, Left 4 Dead 2 was developed in a year, so the developers probably didn't have enough time to add more to the game mode. But at the same time, there was no attempt to improve the game mode in post-launch updates. Instead of reusing a part of a campaign, what if they made an entire new map designed for the game mode, like The Last Stand? That map doesn't do anything unique from a gameplay standpoint, but it does at least have a story, unlike every other map. Think of the potential these maps could have, and what Valve could have done with them. You could probably do so much with survival. I can think of no better example than the custom map Helm's Deep. In this map, there is a sense of progression. As you survive, the map expands and the layout changes. There are Left 4 Dead 1 survivors assisting you in the beginning. That's pretty cool. You've also got a story in there. Now imagine if we had less but more fun and engaging survival maps that had all of these qualities. That would have been cool. The maps overall are honestly not that good, but they're not bad, and at the end of the day, they are harmless maps that have so much missing potential. Versus Survival is probably not worth mentioning, but I'll talk about it more since I briefly mentioned it in my Versus video. The game mode is just survival combined with Versus. Both teams compete for time and whoever lasts longer are the winners. The survivors get 1.5 minutes to set up, which is reasonable. Tanks only have 4,000 HP and only one tank can be active at a time, which I don't agree with. If the game doesn't want there to be multiple playable tanks, fine, but there should at least be AI tanks if the survivors last long enough. Even if you try to spawn them in, the game just won't let you. Stumbling from a jockey or hunter no longer lasts as long as it does in regular survival, so that's nice, I guess. And that is all I know about Versus Survival from a gameplay standpoint, and I can't even be bothered to learn more because they're dead! Survival at least has some people playing, but Versus Survival is a dead game mode, and it's not hard to see why. This game mode used to be a mutation, but the Last Stand update added it to the main menu, making it one of the core game modes. Why they did this? I have no idea. I guess they wanted to replace the old single player game mode with a mutation, but why Versus Survival? They even added an achievement for it where you need to last at least 10 minutes, but you ain't unlocking this son of a bitch. If they really wanted to add a mutation to the main menu, they 100% should have replaced that single player game mode with Last Man on Earth. Not only is that mutation one of the most popular, but it's also a single player experience. That Ellis icon would have fit in perfectly, and I think Last Last Man on Earth deserves to be one of the core game modes because of how unique it is. Not versus survival, we already have 3 versus game modes, we didn't need a 4th.
What were they thinking?
Last Man on Earth is fun, unique, and offers a totally different experience from every other game mode. A golden opportunity missed. What a shame.
And another thing,
If you wanted to play versus survival through the console, you still have to type Mutation 15 after the map name. Maybe the developers just forgot to change this, or maybe they just couldn't. It's not really a big issue, but it did kind of annoy me when I tried to open this game mode through the console. Just something to keep in mind. All in all, there is nothing to versus survival. It doesn't offer anything meaningful to the game. It's definitely the worst core game mode, and it should have stayed in Mutation. Now do another update and replace versus survival with Last Man on Earth. That would be nice. I'm really running out of things to talk about. I could talk about Left 4 Dead 1 survival, but both game modes are pretty similar. Only difference is that Left 4 Dead 1 survival is a lot easier than Left 4 Dead 2, but that doesn't really change anything, it's just easier, and easier doesn't automatically mean better. I could also talk about the sheer amount of god spots that are in every map. As a kid, I really enjoyed doing these glitches, but as a 21-year-old adult, I don't think this is cool anymore. And besides, it's cheating. Maybe I'm being too sentimental about this. Let's not forget that this is a small game mode in a video game that is over 15 years old. And it's not like survival harmed Left 4 Dead 2. For its time, survival was good. I just don't think it's aged as well as campaign and versus. I'm sure the game mode is still a blast to play with friends at pubs, but it's not really fun anymore, at least for me. In conclusion, survival is mediocre. The maps are mid, it's monotonous, the bots are even worse than they are in campaign mode, and there isn't much gameplay variety. It does have the potential to be so much more, and we can see a glimpse of that with Helm's Deep, but it is missing potential that will most likely never be realized. I am glad that the game mode exists though. Despite my negativity, there is no denying that survival is iconic and played a part in making Left 4 Dead 2 the masterpiece that we know of, even to this day. I may not enjoy survival as much as I used to, but I respect it for what it is.